Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our Sunrise Project on this beautiful Sunday morning. I am grateful that we are all together once again in this safe space filled with love and compassion and our mutual desire to heal ourselves and our families. And I'll start with our serenity prayer, like we do every Sunday. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And this morning, I am so honored and happy to have back with us Lexi Hopkins Cunningham. She is a graduate of Yale College and Yale School of Public Health, where she received her BA and MPH, respectively. Lexi is a suicidologist. Her research analyzes the history of suicide in Black communities, and she uses that lens to understand the current crisis of death by suicide among Black youth. In addition to her research, Lexi is an expert in health equity and wellness. And in 2020, after seeing how COVID-19 illuminated health disparities Black communities face, she founded LRH Wellness, a virtual wellness center that uses community-based programs and social media to help Black communities live healthy lives. And Lexi, I have known since she was a small child. We were neighbors, literally lived on the same street. And so to watch Leslie bloom and blossom into this incredible young lady with such an awesome purpose in life is just phenomenal. So I am thrilled to have you back, Lexi. And this morning, we are going to be talking about bullying and how it's really not a phase. It is trauma that affects people and often lasts a lifetime, the effects of it. And so we know that too often our children carry silent wounds from being teased, from being excluded, or being shamed. And as parents, we sometimes struggle with how to protect and heal them while managing our own fears. And for those of you who've been here for a while, we had an incredible woman speak a few years ago about her son who died by suicide after being bullied for many of his teenage years. And so this morning, we are going to talk about bullying and what we can do to take action and to help people, whether they're our own children or people that we see, um, with how we can help do something to help people heal and to provide hope. So, good morning, Lexi. I'm really happy you're here this morning. Good to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're happy to have you always, and thank you for coming back. So, let's start with really just want to hear your background and how you ended up in this space and how you define being a suicidologist.
Yes.
So, please jump in.
So, a suicidologist is somebody who studies suicide from various lenses. So, you can be a suicidologist with a psychological lens, so really understanding the phenomena of suicide. You can be a suicidologist with a sociology lens, thinking more kind of cultural, behavior based. And then you can do it from a public health lens. And there's a lot of different lenses, but I come from a public health lens that really looks at intervention and also population. So,
Mm,
thinking about are there trends within populations, why those trends occur, and how we can take a population based approach to suicide prevention. So, you're thinking about like community interventions, you're thinking about um, media campaigns, right? That's when we mean like population approach. It's instead of that one on one, it's like how can we reach the most people possible with really effective methods. So, I came into this work because I've always been really interested in suicide in Black communities. I think growing up, I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, so it was a very
mm,
white area, and like while there were like it was diverse in certain senses, it was still very white. And seeing that a lot of my Black friends and peers struggled with suicidality very silently, I think it's something that always
mhm,
has stuck in my mind. And so
mm.
when I was in college and kind of had the opportunity to study
Hey,
with,
Lexi, can I stop you for a second? Because I
yeah,
want you to just explain what that means when you say you saw your friends and loved ones um, struggling with suicidality. What does that look like exactly?
I think
Yeah.
that like, as a kid and, like, being, like, middle school, high school age, it was, like, a lot of maybe jokes about feeling suicidal. It might have been a lot of people talking about how they, like, couldn't talk to their parents, cutting,
Mhm.
like, self-harm behaviors, um,
Mhm.
just conversations around, like, not wanting to be there and, like, feeling like they didn't matter, and, again, this, like, very deep fear and fear of this becoming known and desire to protect
Mhm.
us.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So when I got to college, I was able to, study what I wanted, and I had to do research projects and all of that. And I was already studying history of science, medicine, and public health. That was my major. And I was really
Mhm.
interested in medical racism and histories of racism and stigma in Black communities. And that's kind of how I got to the history of suicide in Black communities. And then when I was
Got it.
in my MPH, I like took the modern lens on it and my master's
Mhm.
of public health and like really focused on what's happening with the suicide crisis today and what does help seeking among Black youth look like why or why not are Black youth asking for help when they're suicidal? And the answer is they're not asking. So why are they not
Mhm.
asking? And so that was like my research interest and really big focus because I do think that we can create interventions and destigmatize this as a community, but it takes time, it takes work, it takes dedicated people like you who show up and
Mhm.
have the hard
Mhm.
conversations and are okay with that. So, yeah,
Right.
that's kind of how I got into this work and what my
It's
work.
so fascinating to me, and we need people like you to focus on this because you're right. And the trends are going in the wrong way, as
Yes.
we know. So I'd love for you to explore the connection between bullying and what the psychological and emotional impact of sustained bullying is, and how it differs from the stress and conflict that are often, just a part of growing up. How is
Yeah.
it different?
So I think the first thing when we think of bullying, it is that continuous kind of isolation and
Mhm,
detriments to one's self-esteem, right? It's not um, kind of the one embarrassing moment, right? When we're talking about
mhm,
bullying, we use a gerund for a reason, right? It's continuous. So the think of it as I think a great analogy is like that drop of water analogy. Think of a
mm,
faucet that trickles like every so often you just hear a drop
mhm,
of water. You can't turn it off but it's
mm,
constantly is going. And eventually it starts to drive you a little crazy, right? But it's like
mhm,
small micro, kind of points of
mhm,
irritation. And that's pretty much what bullying is as at a larger scale, right? It's like these constant
mhm,
infractions that make somebody feel psychologically unsafe and oftentimes physically too. And the thing that's like very different for kids now is that the bullying doesn't stop. So, right? So it used to be you got
mhm,
home, you're away from your bully and like all you can really do is ruminate on it. You can be fearful for the next day, but
mhm,
you're in a hopefully safe and psychological safe environment at home. Now, for
mhm,
kids who don't have that psychological or safe environment at home, that's like they're confronted from it from both ends, but nowadays kids go home and they have phones and they have social media and
mhm.
the bullying doesn't stop.
It doesn't turn off,
It doesn't
right?
turn off. And so
Mhm,
that adds an extra level of like what's going on at home and the just constant stress and high levels of cortisol, which cortisol is our stress hormone for people that don't know. And
mhm,
our stress hormone is important, right? We need to be stressed about some things. That's how we get to things on time, how we feel a little
mhm,
urgency.
mhm,
But too
mhm,
much cortisol can really ruin our biology. It leads to higher levels of weight gain. Chronic illness is correlated to high levels of cortisol. It can have long-term health effects. And
mm,
as Black people, we are already predisposed to having high levels of cortisol because of the racism in this country. Not because we're Black, but
mhm,
because of
mhm,
sociological factors, the societal factors that
mhm,
surround us. And so if you think of Black youth who are already predisposed for high cortisol because of the racism and disparities they face just by being Black alone.
right,
Compare that with bullying, you can see that this is a really stressful experience for the nervous system and the psychological system. And that's before saying somebody is suicidal, right? So that alone,
right,
these long-term effects on the body and mental
right.
mental scars, of course, but also a physiological change to somebody's kind of hormonal system. And so we know that bullying
Mm,
has these huge impacts, and we know that bullying can also very strongly contribute to suicidality. That is, thoughts, behaviors, actions of suicide.
mm. So the long-term effects of bullying really are, you're saying, not only psychological, but physiological and on the body because of
Yeah.
these increased sustained levels of cortisol that are in our bodies. Is that
Yeah.
right? That's the most common long-term effect.
Yes,
But
exactly.
mhm,
And it's important to know, our bodies adapt and adjust, right? So, eventually that level of stress becomes somebody's new norm, which still isn't
right.
normal for the body, but your body has learned how to cope with it. And that's again, you see the body adapting in these different changes. So, thinking of higher blood pressure, right? Because your body, it's like almost
Mhm,
like you staying ready, right? To run,
right.
fight, what? And so all of those things we know lead to chronic illness later down the line and have this effect called weathering on the body, which is literally how your
Mm,
body ages faster when you're exposed to
right.
chronic stress. And so that's just from a physiological standpoint, what bullying can do to your body and that high level of stress does to your body.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and that's before you layer on top of it any sort of suicidality.
Which is really scary and concerning. So, what are some of the signs or some of the subtle signs that a person, it could be a child or any person, is experiencing bullying related trauma? And what are those signs that we as parents, including myself, often miss or have missed in the past?
I think isolation's a big one. So like if your child like was hanging out with people before or talked about certain friends but
Hmm.
stopped talking about friends, that's a big sign. I would also say, you know, um a desire, like a fear of school or like a strong aversion to school and like school events, doing anything extra. Um I think too, like them shutting down and just like in general, like turning more inward. And like, of course, we have like our introverted kids and kids who are just more quiet, but like
Hmm.
a noticeable shift, um, jumpiness, fixation. I mean, fixation on the phone is a little different because that's just kind of youth
That's what people,
days.
right? That's everybody right now. Hmm.
Right. But
Hmm.
I would say that like noticing extreme distress from the phone. I think there is a lot of value in being able to monitor social media in a safe and collaborative way with your child, where it's not necessarily feels like a invasion of privacy to them, but it also feels
Hmm.
like you're there to protect them and keep them safe and understand what's going on. Um, but I would say that those are kind of the big things you could look out for. Subtle
Hmm.
language shifts. I hate these people, or nobody's my friend, or nobody likes me, or things like that. Like take it seriously, investigate and probe in a way that resonates with your child, but don't just like blow it off as, you know, childhood angst, right? Like,
Right. But what do you do? How do you investigate and probe? Because in a way that feels right. Because most of the time, um, teenagers, especially, or young adults are, not very talkative. They'll give one-word answers, and there might not be trust
yeah,
established, between the parent and the child.
yeah.
What are some ways that we can communicate better with our children, especially if we see, or young adults, or anybody that we might see in distress, or that there might be signs of bullying or some suicidal thoughts?
I think the first thing to always remember is like you will never have somebody respond to you the way you want them to. Like, right? Everybody's an
That's right.
individual. Like, even if they're a grown adult, like you're not always going to get the
Mhm.
response you want because they're going to respond how they
Right.
want. So I think
Yes.
moderating expectations first and foremost is very important. You're not going to probably
Yes.
have the big story, movie moment with your child where all of a sudden they're like pouring out everything. Like that's unrealistic expectations. But I do think, being consistent, understanding that you might not get the response that you think would be like great and perfect and get all the answers is okay, but showing up again and again and saying, I am here to listen whenever you're ready to talk, but I'm also here to protect you and make sure you're safe. Um, one thing we know with,
And then leave it alone. Is that what you're
yeah,
basically saying? You're
and
saying,
give me
I'm here
space.
to protect, I'm here to talk whenever you're ready, and I love you, and I want to help keep you safe. And that's
Yeah.
it.
And I think, giving affirmations of like, you're valuable, I
Hmm.
appreciate you, the world sees your value, things like that, like, um, go a long way. And you might get you're so corny, mom, like, stop. Like, you might get
Hmm.
that, and that's okay.
Hmm.
But those types of
Hmm.
things really do resonate. I also think there's a lot of value in nonverbal communication. So that could be, writing your kid a letter. And it
Mm.
could just be inviting them to like sit with you while they might be scrolling, or like you might go to them and be like, could I just sit in your room with you while I read my book and you do whatever? Like, I won't bother you. I'll put in
Hmm.
headphones, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
or like, can I take you to get some ice cream? Like, something
Right.
for kids that like there's just no expectation of them to carry the relationship, to carry the conversation, to divulge all of this. Like, that's a big ask for anybody to, if you haven't
Right.
had a relationship where you're constantly sharing or sharing your innermost thoughts or your inner world, to be expected to do that all of a sudden is a
Right.
jump. So creating just
Right.
space to be together and that non-verbal opportunity is really, really valuable. And it will also give you the opportunity to really observe your child. Because
Hmm.
because I would deign to say a lot of parents don't actually know their children as much as they think they do.
Right.
And so when you
Creating a space. Yes, keep going. I love that.
yeah, like just I'll end with like when you can observe in a non-judgmental way and just sit and see and non-invasive in a way in which you were invited into that space, there's so much value in what you can learn by just being
Mm.
patient.
Yes. I love that. And it's like being quiet and even just sitting and watching a movie,
Yeah.
like saying, let's watch a movie or what do you want to watch? That could be something, that
Yeah.
could open up a space, but then also being quiet and being willing to listen,
Yeah.
and I remember last time you were here, we talked about the importance of listening and which has the same like listen and silent, being
Yeah.
silent and being quiet which has the same letters as listen. Like you can't listen unless you're silent and you can sit in a quiet space and just be present. I think that's so powerful. I really do. I remember my youngest used to be when he was his first year when he was at the Naval Academy. He would sometimes just call, he'd FaceTime. We would just sit on the phone for hours while he was doing his homework. And I would say, you good? He says, yeah. And we would just sit there. And so I thought, I think he just needs some comfort of just having someone sort of feel like they're nearby because he was going
Yeah.
through whatever he was going through that first year. So I think that's really powerful. And it's a great reminder to be quiet and listen and create, I think what you said, non-judgmental
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. That's the thing. You can't go and ask to sit in the room and then all of a sudden be like, why is your laundry here? Why haven't you made your bed? Why is all this stuff out? Right?
Yes.
You have to go in and just be silent and accept it. I had the thought too, it's also very important when you are approaching your child about this is like in my research we see a lot like a big thing of Black youth not seeking help for suicidality or any sort of like mental distress is they don't want to be burdensome to their parents, but they're also fearful,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think it's important to remember like if a kid's being bullied, they don't really think you
Mm-hmm.
can do anything about it
Mm-hmm.
but make
Mm-hmm.
it worse. Like think about yourself as a kid and like think about like
Mm-hmm.
as a parent now you have the greatest intentions and you have this level of like power and authority that's important, but like realistically a
Mm-hmm.
kid's like, what are you gonna do? Like come into the school and embarrass me? Like now I'm embarrassed because my mom's the one yelling in the office. The
Mm-hmm.
bully's now in trouble. They're going to be worse to me. They're still going to go to this school. If they don't go to this school, now I'm the kid that got this kid kicked out of school. So your kid also, you have to realize, like, doesn't really think that you are going to be able to do anything to change the situation.
Right.
And
And that's probably true, right? Isn't
yeah,
that pretty true? Because what you just said, if you go to the school and you get the kid kicked out, expelled, or suspended or whatever, then that's bad for your
Yeah.
person. And if you speak to the kid, then that's not good. You know, like that movie, The
Right.
Hand That Rocked the Cradle. Or, I mean, there's like nothing on the other side potentially
And so I
that's
think
good for the kid. But so what do you, oh, go ahead. Please finish your
no,
thought.
no, no, no. I was going to say exactly. And so I think, it's important to like have a conversation with the school and let the school know what's going on because you do want somebody to watch your kid and keep
Yes.
it safe. Like as a parent, I'm not saying don't do anything, but realistically, there is a level of you can't change that other kid's behavior with
Hmm.
and there's consequences in either direction. And so what you can do though is fortify your child's confidence and resilience.
Mm,
And not oh, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, buddy. Go back out there, fight back. Like, not like that, but truly, like, who do they see themselves as their inner beings? And that's why, like, affirmations and letting your kid determine who they are, what they stand for, and how they'll remind themselves is really important. So, you
mm.
know,
But how do we do that exactly?
I,
Because, yeah, how do we do that?
you know,
What are some tactical ways?
I think the first thing you should be thinking about is how do you talk about yourself?
Mm,
Does your child hear you all the time? Oh, I can't get anything right, or I messed this up, or gosh, like work's killing me. I can never win. Like, oh my gosh,
mm,
like how do you talk about yourself? How do you accept
mm-hmm,
compliments? How do you
mm,
acknowledge when you do great things? Like, how do you talk about
mm.
yourself? Because that's how your child's going to talk about themselves.
That's so deep. That's even, I remember listening, and it may have been you the last time. If you say, as a woman, as an example, oh, I don't like my hair, or I don't like how my stomach looks, and then your child has your exact same hair and your exact same figure, body shape, then
Yep.
they start to internalize, well, my hair does not look good, or, I don't like how I look, or whatever it may be. And so you're saying, even from a personality perspective and how we evaluate our own self-worth and how we speak to ourselves with kindness and love and affirmations, they also internalize. That's
Yes.
so deep.
Kids are incredible observers of the world around them, right? And that's
Hmm.
why and we don't oftentimes give them credit. They're very observant.
Hmm.
They understand social dynamics very, very well. And that's what a lot of my research talks about of like they know when their families are stressed. They know
Yes.
they can't deal with one more thing, right? And so if we're talking about ourselves so negatively, how do you think they're thinking of themselves? Are they all of a sudden going to have this incredible confidence when all the adults around them are having negative
Hmm.
self-talk? Like it's a skill to build confidence. It has to be reinforced.
Yes.
And you can tell your kid all the time, I'm proud of you, you're doing great, you're doing great. But if they're still hearing that negative self-talk about yourself, well, that's how their inner voice will be. And
Hmm.
you think really evaluating how you speak about yourself
Hmm.
to the world, to other people, how you represent yourself to yourself is very important. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is
That's so good.
cultivate a practice of affirmations in the house. Like, thinking about things of like, what's one thing, like a simple question. I know you want me out your face today. I know you're sick of me, but I want you just to let me know one thing you're proud of today and I'll let you go. I'll let you be. You
I
can do it
love
like
that.
that. You can do it like that. You can build and practice. I know one of my
Mm,
friends, she has young kids, so it's a little different. Her kids are, PK age, but she has on her wall like these cool like block letters where it's like,
mm.
I am brave, I am strong, I am proud. And like her kids, they walk out the house every day when they leave school, they walk
I
out
love that.
and like, you might not put up big
That's
letters
so
in your
awesome. But
house,
even
but
just saying, even to a 20-something year old to say, hey, what are you proud about today? Just one thing. Give me one word, particularly for people that are one word people.
yeah,
That's such a great example. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So I think
Hmm.
like cultivating things like that and also reminding your children of the ways in which they've shown resilience. Like you've seen it.
Hmm.
You might not know your kids in the ways you think you do, but you do know your kids in a lot of ways that they don't even realize.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
showing them like you see their resilience, I notice this thing about you where even when you think you can't do it, somehow you always get it done better than
Yeah,
and just leave it there. Like you don't have to go super deep. You don't have to make this monologue and you don't have to follow up. You can just say the thing and let it sit. That's like
right.
oftentimes more powerful than anything else you can do. And so I think that
What about saying thank you for the good things? Like, what about acknowledgments via, like, in addition to, I love your example about being, say one thing you're proud of or something maybe you
yeah,
love about yourself, but how important is it to just thank people or kids or whomever for the good things, the positive things? Is that something that's equally important?
I think it is. I think it is. But I also think it's getting in the habit of not only praising in the good.
Mm,
And that's why I think it's important to point out like the resilient moments, right? So like I think it is very important to thank your kids for the good things they do. And when they are, showing up and doing things and you have gratitude for your child,
hmm.
it's important to acknowledge those positive things, but I think it's important to also show gratitude just for them being like, I'm really grateful you're my kid. Like I think
That's
that's a really
awesome.
beautiful thing because that touches on just them being, not doing.
I love that.
We can often get hyper fixated on the doing, and then that affiliates things in kids' minds of like, when I do, I am good. But that's not the truth because they are.
Gosh, I love that.
So I think that's a important maybe a twist to the gratitude component. And I would also think it's important to show gratitude for when they're not at their best, right? Like it's not like, oh, you threw a dish, so thank you. Like no. Like maybe like I can tell you're really angry and I'm grateful that you feel comfortable expressing that anger with me.
Gosh, this is so
Like
good.
something
I
like
wish you
that.
could be in all of our ears during these conversations. And sometimes the conversations are difficult conversations,
Mhm.
particularly, a lot of people here in this community have shared their our collective challenges with our children, and many of whom are grown children that might be still at home, or they might be in high school, or they could be 35 years old or whatever it is. And often we get stuck sometimes in the negative, like I asked them not to smoke when they're smoking, I smell it, or they
Yeah,
didn't wash the dishes, and once again, and we get all frustrated. So it's like a paradigm shift
it
that
is.
probably opens up a really beautiful space for creating a relationship that's different than
Yeah.
what it has been up until now.
And I think too that, especially when you're thinking of older children, right?
Hmm.
The autonomy level is a little different than, young children, middle school, even high school. I think it's important, something that we don't think about, especially as women, is that we don't respect our boundaries, right? A boundary is only a boundary if you enforce it. So like the
Yes.
example you gave of like smoking, you're like older, your young adult child lives at your house, and one of your rules is not smoking.
Right.
When you just complain about it and get mad, but don't do anything. Don't enforce it with your boundary. Like, you're just like, he smoked again in the
Mm-hmm.
house. He's smoking again in the house.
Right.
And you're
Right.
mad and you're yelling. That also shows like you don't respect your own rules. And it's not that negative self-talk, but
Hmm.
it's still signaling like that you're not respecting yourself too, because you let it
Mm,
slip. So thinking of like the consequence, like, like if you are smoking in my house, like I'm gonna need you to pay rent.
hmm.
Or it's a fine. If you were in a building, we would fine you. Maybe it's that. Maybe
Right.
I don't know what it is. Like your house, your business.
Right.
But but enforcing those things shows a level of
Hmm.
respect you have for yourself too, of like
I love that.
I I decide how I am treated. And when
Hmm.
I'm not treated
Hmm.
the way that respects me, my personhood, my desires, this is how I respond. And so I think when you're thinking of adult children, like you have that ability to be more
Hmm.
an adult and
Yes.
like this is what I stand for because again, not only is your child learning that they can push people's boundaries, but you don't really want people doing, right? Like you want to show your
Right.
kid that like no, we respect other people's boundaries, but also that like you can be disrespected and your boundaries can be disrespected and you don't have to enforce your boundaries in a aggressive or, burn the earth type of way. can be very straightforward of like, this is the thing I asked you to do. I love you. I understand like this is what you want to do, but this is a consequence for it. Cut dry. Like I'm not going to sit here and lecture. You're an adult.
Just the fact, just the facts, no
Yeah.
emotion around the
There's
facts.
no emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And you might share, I do
Mm-hmm.
feel really disrespected, and that's why, I'm really taking a hard line on this and like I love you, but like the end of the day, this is what makes me feel good in my body and
Right.
safe, and this is what I need. And so I think, being very clear and just like of your expectations and being transparent and almost non-emotional about it, and that's hard.
Yes,
And
that
that's
part is
very
the
difficult.
hard part.
It's
That's
very
the
difficult
hard part because
because
you
you
feel
take it personally.
disrespected. Yes, please go ahead.
You take it personally. Exactly. You feel disrespected. But I think it's like this thing of it's not always an intentional effort to disrespect. It's
Mm-hmm.
young adults learning how to assert their own autonomy, how they're going to
Mm-hmm.
their own life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like you think of like if your child's living at home, they probably have peers who aren't, who are doing whatever they want in their own space, and
That's
you might
right.
feel envious of that, right? Or, maybe they're used to something different because they were away for a little bit and they feel adult and, they're doing all these things. And so while there are instances of just blatant disrespect, there's also a lot of it's just them and their own things. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to learn how to not take things personally.
Right. And you
How,
said earlier, reset our expectations, or you
yeah,
said, I think was, yeah, it was like it's shifting expectations and also
exactly.
being clear and stating the facts without the emotional part. But that is the hardest part as a parent, because many of us go from 0 to 100 when we smell something or we say, "Oh my God, I asked you not to put food in the room. Please only eat in the kitchen." How hard is that? And it goes to a real, potentially negative space, and then they don't like. No one's happy. Oh,
Yeah,
it's sort of a mess.
completely.
Hmm.
It's hard. I think, none of this stuff's easy. Like it sounds a lot easier right now. Like, oh, say the nice words, like just enforce my boundaries. Like
Right.
it's
It's
hard.
not realistic in some cases. It's
Exactly.
hard. It's hard.
Hard.
Hmm.
It takes practice. So I think you should also frame all of this as a practice. It's not like
Yes.
get this overnight. It's like I'm gonna try. And maybe it's
Hmm.
like, starting with how you talk about yourself. Like maybe that's you pick one thing from today's conversation.
Yes.
And you really think about that. You really reflect on it. You really think of like, start noticing, wow, I just said that about myself in my head, or I said that out loud.
Yes.
And then from noticing, you can move into action. And the same is true with how you interact with your child. Um, but I think it's really important to keep in mind too that we can only control ourselves.
That's right. That's
And
the biggest point right
the
there.
second you can
Hmm.
realize that and like think of how you, through controlling yourself, you can shift the world around you, like that's a really powerful realization to have.
Yes. By controlling ourselves, we can shift the world around us. That's so true. It's how we show up, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to them. I just texted my sons and said, I'm grateful you're both my sons. I love you. Have an amazing Sunday.
Yeah.
Because you said, like, that was such a great little nugget
Yeah.
and nothing else. And that's, I'm sure whenever they wake up and see it, I'll get a heart back or a love you too, mom, or whatever it is. But there's nothing attached to it.
Yeah. Which is like so special.
Such a great lesson.
And
Hmm.
you think, I think as parents know like their love is not tied to anything, right? Like it's
Hmm.
unconditional. It
Hmm.
exists in abundance, but kids don't often feel that. Think about when yourself were when you were a kid. You thought like I did good,
Hmm.
so that's why I got the I love you, or like I got the
Hmm.
you're doing great because I did this thing. Like so
Hmm.
even though you might know your love is unconditional, that you're there to protect your child, that you're there for their well-being,
Hmm.
that you're there to help, set them up for excellence, they don't always know that.
Right.
And so when you
Right.
have those opportunities to share your love and share your appreciation with no strings attached, it really speaks to that
Mm,
unconditional love.
that's right. I love that. Gosh, I want to just make sure that if anybody wants to share this morning, there's time for that. And because we can talk all morning, Lexi.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by all of this and wish I knew this, when my kids were much younger. But that's okay. We are learning, and it's always a possibility to make a change. So if anybody wants to share or come off of mute and have a question, if you have a question for Lexi, or if you're dealing with something on your heart this morning that you'd like to share, feel free. If you're on your phone, you can hit *6, or if you want to come off of mute on your computer, either way, we'd love to hear from you this morning. If not, I'll keep asking questions, and that's fine too. But if anybody has a thought or a question or anything you might be dealing with on your heart this morning, feel free. Looking to see if there's any comment. Someone says, I love that that could create performance-based anxiety if you only acknowledge the good or if they feel loved because of the good. That's so true. See anybody off of mute? Nope, people are quiet this
This
morning.
this is Andre. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Hi, good morning.
I wanted to say good morning. Thank you. These calls are always so good, and I feel like right on time, right on time. So, Lexi, when you talked about only acknowledging the good, that struck a chord, and I put the comment in the chat because that struck a chord with me because that's something that I am now learning that God just appreciates me for being, not the doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm intentional about making sure that my kids know, yes, I want the best for you. Yes, I want honor roll and all that, but I want you to do your best. But regardless of any of that, I love you just because of who you are, not what you do. And so that's something that I am personally learning about myself, right? Because how I grew up and what you talked about when your kids are watching you, like I know that those are things that I learned, and that's I only felt acknowledged when I did, when there was an achievement of some sort. So I grew up being a high achiever because I thought the performance equated love,
Mhm.
right? And so now I'm intentional about rewiring myself so that I could pass on something different to my children. So thank you, thank you, thank you for just the practical examples that you gave of how we can I'm just proud of you. Not because of what you did, but just who you are. Thank you.
Of course. I'm glad that resonated. I'm glad that resonated. And I think that's the thing too, right? Like we pass on what we've learned. It takes I think it takes a large effort and shift and multiple tries to change how we were brought up and do something different. So kudos to you for shifting for your kids and knowing that there's something different that you could be doing. I think that's really cool as well. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I love that. And thank you for sharing that, Andrea. That's so good. And I know I did the same thing with my kids. Growing up, it was a lot of positive energy around swimming and performance. So there's performance-based praise, which is not good. Oh, it just is what it is. So this opportunity to shift, that's the beauty of every day. It's a new possibility every day to
I have a
shift our
question,
behavior.
Kelly. Good
Yes. Hey,
morning.
Dr.
Good morning,
Vicky. Good
Lexi.
morning. Good
Hi.
morning.
Um, I have a question for us as adults because I was bullied as a child, and could you speak to how we can, as adults, transmute that trauma of being bullied as a child into how we can, turn it into a strength as adults? Because for a long time, that pattern of silence followed me, right? So
Mhm.
just curious if you have a perspective on, because a lot of adults experience bullying at work,
Mhm.
you know, in different scenarios and in relationships, etc. So it's difficult to support our children when they have this experience if we have not gathered tools, if you will,
Mhm.
to flip that. It follows us and it becomes a pattern. So, can you speak to that? How we
That's
as adults can heal from being bullied as a child?
That's a wonderful question. So, I think there's a lot of different avenues. So, the first beautiful thing about being an adult is autonomy. You can go away. You can get up, you can move, you can make the decisions.
Mhm.
And I think claiming that autonomy is the first and most important thing you can do. So, we oftentimes think we can't do something. So, like, let's say you're in a meeting, you're being berated in a meeting, you're getting these nasty emails from a colleague or a boss, and we think we have to take it, because of whatever consequences. You actually don't. And so I think, you know, being able to acknowledge what you have to do and what you don't have to do, like, is very important. And recognizing
Mm,
that you have more power than you think, and whatever that looks like for you is really important. So, let's say you're at a job and you're experiencing bullying in the workplace. Maybe you don't have a compassionate boss. Maybe you don't have the HR team who's going to like ride for you, get this person like the training they need again, or get them off the job, right? But you
mhm,
do have control over like how you take things. And I think it's important to
mm,
start the process of like asserting like,
mhm,
I hear you have feedback for me. I don't actually appreciate being talked to this way. I don't take feedback positively this way. So maybe instead,
mm,
like, we could have a conversation another day where like we'll both be able to communicate better. Like, that is like a respectful, like, how to handle your business type of way. I think so. First, reminding yourself of the power you do have is one of the first things, because as children we often feel so powerless in our bullying, and that's like a thread that like you can then link throughout your life of moments where you feel powerless and feel like you can't do anything. But reminding yourself you have power now, especially in ways you didn't as a child, is one of the first important things you.
mm,
I think too, um, talking about it. I think once we get past childhood, our childhood wounds feel inconsequential. They feel small. And think about how we even talk to children of like, oh, you're a kid, like this, you'll get past this. This is, pennies on the dollar of what you'll experience to life, right? That's the type of language and attitude
mm,
we have to keep. This
mm.
is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Oh, this is so small in your life. But it's not.
Right.
Think of like when, first of all, when you're a kid, that's the only frame of reference you have. So it's a lot as a kid. But as an adult, we know that these things from childhood still haunt us, still
Mhm,
bother us. So I think acknowledging that our childhood wounds are wounds and that they impact our day-to-day life, and talking about them in a real way. So, you go through that acknowledgement, you go through like the accepting of the power you have, and then you talk about it. You work with a therapist, you work with a coach, you have a support group, you talk to the people who may or may not have been around in that time, and just share like, this really hurt me, without the expectation that they will fix it, that they will understand you, or that they will apologize, like for not stepping in. Just
mhm,
to be able to share your narrative is really important. And that might
mhm,
be writing in a journal if you're not sharing with people, doing those things that allow you to reflect and acknowledge how difficult it was for you, because it's so easy to minimize things that happen in childhood.
mm,
But we know those things set our foundation. Our childhood's our foundation for life.
mhm.
So when there are cracks in that foundation, it will impact the whole structure unless we can fill
That's
in,
right.
we can heal from them. So really taking.
And eventually the structure crumbles.
Exactly. You get
Mhm,
to a point of no return. And so taking those seriously, I think, is really important as well. So just to recap the
mm,
things I said would be: one, acknowledging the autonomy you have and walking away, and the power you have. So accepting that power, acknowledging it. Two, getting real and acknowledging the trauma you had and you experienced as a childhood, and giving it kind of the credence and deference it deserves, as serious as it is. And then three, really working on healing from that trauma, working with a coach, a therapist, a counselor, a journal, a support group, trusted family, friends, like sharing your story and working with people to share how you feel about it. And, I would say on the fourth one, like, really, this kind of goes back to that claiming your power, but doing things to empower you. So confronting kind of scary situations, putting yourself in new environments and showing yourself you won't crumble. So we know as like Black people that colorism and skin tone based bullying has really huge effects, especially for Black women, and suicidality
mhm,
later in life. So if you're bullied
Mm,
on colorism, especially um, for darker toned women, we know that have a higher likelihood of suicidality as adult women, whether the bullying happened in childhood or as an adult. And
that
so,
is a wild, I never heard that and
yeah.
did not realize that. Wow.
Oh, yeah. So it's one of those things of, putting yourself in the situation of being empowered. So if you were told, like, you could never wear that lipstick color, like, you're too dark, like, that doesn't look good on you. If you experience bullying like that, go put on the lipstick color and maybe you just do it in the bathroom and nobody sees you. You never wear it out. But putting moments of empowerment is a really valuable thing you can do where you then talk about it. You're saying, wow, look at myself. I look great. This purple, crushing it, killing it. I
Hmm.
need to be in New York Fashion Week, right? Like, hype yourself up,
Hmm.
do the mirror talk, and it might feel corny, but soon enough it won't, and you'll feel stronger, you'll feel more empowered, and those voices of those bullies will start to dissipate. So those are the four, like, like pinpoint
Incredible.
things I would say to do. That was
Thank you for
long-winded.
that. All amazing. I typed everything you said in the notes. So they're in the chat. Those four incredible opportunities are four things we can do to deal with any sort of childhood bullying. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Vicky.
Yes.
And a really lovely note, Deborah, your former next door neighbor, Miss
Oh,
Deborah, she wrote so much wisdom. Wow, I remember you playing with Jordan in the backyard. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with us today. I feel the exact same way. I remember you when you were probably 5, I don't even know. But really incredibly wise, wonderful. Insights that you've shared with us. It's just awesome to see you bloom and blossom and be who you are, Lexi.
thank you.
We have time for one last comment or question before we wrap up this morning. Anyone else want to share this morning or have a question for Lexi? She is incredible as we're hearing and seeing and witnessing. Any other comments or thoughts from anybody on this morning? Okay, well, I would like you to, as we summarize this morning, give us your top three action items we can go into today as we start our day. The top three things we can do.
I think the top three things you can do after having listened to this conversation are one, change how you talk about yourself. That's
Yes, and let's do that. I think we should do that. I mean, I think we can do something where we say, one thing I love about myself
yeah,
is blank. And
exactly.
so we should do that. So people who are able to type in, what's one thing you love about yourself? Let's put that in the chat.
Yes,
And if you don't want to put it in the chat, say it to yourself. One thing I love about myself is I have positive energy.
I love
That's
that.
one thing I love about myself.
I would say
So I'd love for, go ahead, Lexi, what's yours?
one thing I love about myself is that I love the hard stuff. Like that's where I find,
Wow.
yeah,
That's where you find what?
joy, being able to be there for the hard
Oh,
stuff. Yeah.
that's so good. I typically try to move past the hard stuff and I chase joy sort of as much as I can, but I don't like working through the muddy stuff. So that's
Yeah.
so powerful that you say you like dealing with the hard stuff. That's incredible.
Thank you.
I
The
love people are saying, I love my persistence. One thing I love about myself is my generosity. I love being me. It's
yeah,
fantastic. And it feels good to say it.
yes,
I love that I can be compassionate.
yes,
So good. I'm smiling reading these, and also I feel the good energy.
yes.
So doing that, I think looking how we speak to ourselves, that's your first piece of advice. Okay.
The second one I would say is allow your kids to be, not just do. And in that in particular, I would say allowing them to be and observing that. So sitting with them quietly, asking to be invited into their inner world in a non-invasive way. So really allowing your child just to be instead of focusing on doing and what they do is really powerful.
That's awesome. I love it. Is there a third one?
Yeah, I would say the third thing you could do when you walk away is honestly, it's really the serenity prayer of like accept what you can
Yes.
change and acknowledge what you can't.
Yes.
So there's a
Accept
lot.
what you can change and change what you can change, and then
Yeah,
know the difference, right? Know which one is
exactly.
which. Hmm.
Because I think when we think of bullying and mistreatment by people you have no control over, like you can't change that child's behavior. You can't, I mean, you can try and change what the school does, right? Like you can try those things. But what you can change is your home environment, creating a
Yes.
psychologically safe environment for your child, creating the ways in which
Mm,
they can feel confident and express themselves, and setting yourself up to be a true role model for that. So those are the three I would give.
I love it. Those are phenomenal. I want you to be in my ear somehow. Maybe there could be technology where we can like have a little AirPod with wisdom advice from Lexi. The Lexi Love Journal. I don't know, but you're phenomenal. And I love having you here and seeing all the incredible work you're doing. And so would love to have you back at some point to
Oh,
give
like
us this wonderful advice. So thank you for being here, Lexi. It's been a phenomenal session as always. And I will turn it over to Dr. Vicky this morning, as always, again, to close us out in a prayer.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you so much.
Thank you again, Lexi. You're always wonderful and just always so willing to come, and we appreciate you. And thank you for the work that you do. God, we thank you for this day that you've given to us. When we choose to rejoice and give you glory, we thank you for our guest today, Lexi. Continue to bless her, be a blessing through her, bless her family, bless her marriage, bless her practice, the work that she does in the world, wellness and color. Thank you for Kelly and Dee and the SonRise Project. Thank you for the wisdom that you so freely pour into our hearts week after week. We are grateful and do not take it for granted. Thank you for courage today, the overwhelming theme of courage, because courage strengthens our hearts. And so we thank you for the opportunity to practice courage, moving forward to transmute pain and trauma into power and into things that make a difference in the lives of others as well as our children and ourselves. Bless every home represented on this call today. And we give you glory for all of the good things, all of the goodness, all of the lessons, all of the successes, all of the next chances that we are given to heal and to expand and to grow and spread joy in the world. We love you, we praise you, and we thank you. And bring us back together again next week so that we can continue to learn and grow up in you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen. Awesome morning as always. Thank you for being here. And thank you so much, Lexi. Just phenomenal. And thank you, Dr. Vicky, for closing us out with such a gorgeous prayer. Have a beautiful day, everyone. We'll be back next week.
thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you. Bye bye.